Hi everyone, I'm Mitch.
And I'm Jill, and I'm going to be behind the camera today.
It's about time. Today we're making bread. We're going to bake some bread in the RV. On our tour video we mentioned that I make bread, and I got a few people asking me for the recipe and how I actually do it. And to be honest, I do it exactly the way I did it at home. Alright, so the first thing we're going to start with is the ingredients that I use to make bread. Now keep in mind that this is my grandma's recipe that we've used for years and years and years. So you might have a different version of it. Some people put eggs, some people put all kinds of stuff. So just keep in mind whatever recipe you use is fine. I think it's more of the technique that people are interested in. So in my recipe I have about 5 cups of flour. I need 2 tablespoons of sugar because we like it a little sweet. Yeast, I use about 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast. I have 2 tablespoons of butter, a cup of milk, and a cup of warm water, and about a teaspoon of salt. So the tools that I use are my thermometer. I have some measuring spoons, some measuring cups. I have 2 bowls here, one that I mix the dough in and one that I put the dough in after to make it rise. I have some plastic wrap, or what do you call that?
Saran wrap.
Saran wrap on top to make sure there's no drafts that get in, and some bread pans. I have a rolling pin that I roll the dough after. So basically that's it. That's all the ingredients and the tools that I use. Alright, so the first thing that I do is prepare the yeast. So get it to poof, bubble, people have different names for that, but we get it started so that it can be ready for the bread dough. So we find warm water in like about, between 105 and 115 degrees. So we get 1 cup of water, and then we put 1 tablespoon of sugar in there. And the reason that you put sugar in the water and dissolve it is because that's what feeds the yeast and activates it. So it's really important. This step is extremely important because it won't work unless you do that. So once your sugar is dissolved in the warm water, I check the temperature. And there you go. It's about 105 degrees, 107, so that's perfect. And then we put the yeast in. And I put 2 1/4 teaspoons. I give that a really quick stir. And then I let that sit for about 10 minutes. And let the yeast activate. So while the yeast is rising, then I warm up my milk. And the way, so I have 2 tablespoons of butter in here, and I just add the milk to this. I just put it on here. So while the yeast is rising, I just let this warm up, and I let it warm up until the butter is melted. So again, I want that to be warm. When I touch it, I want it to be, just to say a little warm. So not hot and not cold. So it is very important for you to put about 1.5 teaspoons of salt within the milk and sugar mixture. And the reason for that is because it allows the yeast to kind of relax a little bit. Because without it, it just, gets it's too active. So the sugar is to feed the yeast, and the salt is to kind of just keep it tame, I guess you would say. Okay, so now that the yeast has poofed, as they call it, you just pour it into your bowl. And then you pour the warm milk mixture into your bowl. And then you start adding the flour. So I always add about 1 cup of flour at a time, just to kind of get an idea of what's happening within my dough. So this is basically the more long, tedious process of it. But like I said, everybody has different techniques. This is mine. This is a way to make sure that all of the flour gets incorporated within the liquid. So when I used to do this at home, within my, when I had a bricks and sticks home, I had a big mixer that would do this for me. But You know how Jill brought a lot of tools with him? That one I wasn't allowed to bring. My KitchenAid mixer was not allowed to come with me. So I had to learn to do it by hand. It was very big. I don't think we would have had room for it. So you'll notice that I have to put quite a bit more effort into mixing the dough as the more flour I put in. When it gets very difficult and kind of like almost like in the shape of a ball and you're having trouble incorporating the flour is when you can start the other step, which will be kneading the dough. So this is where you kind of got to get your hands dirty. So it's very sticky at this moment. So the object is to just try and mix in as much flour as possible. And once you get like a dough formed, and you'll see is when you can really start kneading it. And I'll show you guys how to knead that in a second. But you notice it's very sticky and kind of sticks to your the surface here. So we need to get more flour incorporated. So some people have different theories about this, and it all depends on how heavy you want your bread. I like mine kind of medium heavy. I don't like a lot of bubbles in it and stuff, so that's why I add a little bit more flour than usual. But as I'm kneading it here and it gets really sticky, I'll just keep adding flour to it. Now this is the really long process. This actually takes about 10 minutes time for it to work. And I'll give you guys a little indication on, people often ask me, how do you know how long to knead your bread? And I actually learned this from YouTube. But when you lift your dough like this and you see that you start getting like it's falling apart, that means it needs a lot more kneading. So then you just keep kneading it. So the way to knead is to really put your palm into the dough and then roll it and fold. So you remember how I showed you, how it fell apart. So I'm going to show you, this is how I can tell if I'm done with the kneading. And you'll notice that it stays together much more, and you can actually see there's like no holes being created as I pull it. That means it's ready. So now we'll get it ready in a bowl and get it ready to rise. So it needs to rise for about an hour and a half on the first one. So what I do to prepare it to rise is I just spray my big bowl here with some cooking spray. I then grab the dough, put it in, and then I flip the dough to make sure it's on both sides like this. And then I cover it with plastic wrap. Well, the most important part here is when you're rising your dough is to find a draft-free area and warm enough for it to activate. Now, draft-free area in an RV proves to be a little difficult, so my favorite place to rise the dough is in the microwave. So now we wait an hour and a half, and then we'll form the dough balls. Now we pull out, it's been about 90 minutes and the dough has risen. So now the fun part, and the kids used to love this part all the time when we were home, punch the dough. You ready? Yay! So then you just pull it out of the bowl, and you'll notice it's not really sticking because that's why we put the spray on it. So you just knead it a couple more times here, like so. I don't put flour because I don't want to add flour to my dough at this point, so I just knead it a little bit more. And you can actually hear the bubbles busting in it. And I form it into a ball, like so. And then I cut it in half. So Now we have 2 equal size, approximately. I needed a little bit more, like so. And now it's time to form it into a loaf. So different techniques for this, but I roll mine. And only because I like to take as much of the air out as possible. And if you really listen, you can hear it. I call it fluffing. And then you just roll it up. Stick it together. Fold it. Like so. Then I kind of just roll it, try and make it as even as possible. And then I put it in my greased loaf pans. And then again, this needs to rise for about another hour, so I put it in the microwave. Okay, so now we have the moment of truth. Ta-da! So now all there's left to do is bake it, and we bake it in about 375. It's really hard to gauge the temperature in your RV oven, but about 375 for about 20-25 minutes. Now I'm gonna take them out of the oven, so moment of truth. Oh, they're hot. There we have one. So the way to know if they're ready is you kind of knock them, and if it feels hollow, it means they're ready. Hollow. And then my little trick is a brush. And I put some butter on the brush, and I just butter it like so. Just a little bit of butter. And all that does is make sure that the crust doesn't get too hard. So it all depends. Some people prefer that. I particularly don't. So I just brush it with a little bit of butter. And that's it. So thanks for watching. If you like this channel and like what you see, please give us a like. And if you want more of these cooking videos, let us know. We'd love to know. Have yourself a great day, guys.